of the first pause. I think that pause to breathe. You
Hmm.
don't know often how many challenges you have or how deep your challenges are until you sit still for a minute. So
Hmm.
that's my encouragement is like to not be afraid to let that hamster wheel stop because we all run it and something else is just in front of it keeping you going.
Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and every episode we get into what has made our guests vulnerable and how they've learned how to own their awkward in order to live their best life. Stay tuned so you can hear every awkward moment in today's show. Hey, friends, welcome back to another podcast episode of the Own Your Awkward show. And I am super, super excited to have one of my newest local friends, Angie Jones, here today. Angie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We're PNW people, so we understand the value that the sun is out today. And if I looked out the right window, the mountain might be even out too. And for those of you who don't understand that, it's a whole thing. But I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, exactly. I was on a Zoom call earlier, and I don't usually have my drink during my show, but it was Tacoma with the mountain.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
And,
See? Yeah,
and it was one of those things where, people see it and they're like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, no, that's our mountain. Like, it's
that's
right
our
here.
mountain.
This is our
Yes.
view. Yeah. Yeah, I love that saying about living like the mountains out,
Hmm.
because we have days where it's gray and rainy,
Yeah.
but we gotta create the sunshine.
It's so true. It's so true. Had a moment like that this weekend. An event I was participating with in the morning. It was real drizzly, gray, all the things. And I
Mhm.
was like, yo, we bring the sunshine. We're the ones.
Right.
We're the light. Let's go.
All right. Well, that's gonna open up a new question for us that I haven't asked before, because we went there. But so how do you live like the mountains out? How do you create the sunshine?
You have to, well, first of all, I just personally believe that we have it within us anyways, as some sort of light. Like it's just up to us to choose
Mm.
if we're going to accentuate that or not, right? Because it can easily get buried. It
Yeah.
can get buried by the everyday mundane. It can get buried by some legit stuff we're dealing with. It can get buried by those gray clouds outside. I mean, that is a real thing for us. We make jokes about it, but there's something about cloud cover and cloud cover for a long time that will start to do something to your mental, well-being a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It challenges us, let's put it that way.
Right.
So we have to kind of do that. And for me, I do this thing with my courses and things like that is a gratitude check-in.
Mm.
Like that's how I make sure I keep the light in front of me sometimes. It's like, let me just pause and think of some things and say out loud what I'm grateful for.
I love that. Just a
Yeah.
gratitude check-in, because I know
Gratitude,
sometimes we
gratitude
have,
check-in.
the check-in in the morning, or we have,
Hmm.
gratitude journaling. There's a lot of different ways to approach
Hmm.
it. I love
Hmm.
this idea of just checking in, because we might have done the work the night before, the morning of, or we may have the list of things.
Yeah.
But, maybe before we reply to that email, or maybe before we step into that conversation,
Yes.
we just need to have that couple minutes with ourselves and go, all right, these are all the things I feel good about.
Hmm. And they tend to rise for me in my some of the car rides from point A to point B of,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like, especially when you're getting into it and you're like, I've done this and now I've got to go do
Right.
that. And you can start to feel your list on you instead
Mm-hmm.
of, being really present with yourself. And so I'll just, hey, gratitude check-in time. Let's
Yeah.
go. What are you thankful for? It could even be because of just like communal things that are happening for us, right? Like big
Mm-hmm.
community issues or big, national issues or global issues, whatever. It's like, let's check in and
Right.
see what we are grateful for, because there's always something.
Yeah. I love
There's
that
always,
too. You mentioned all the things that are happening in the world and around us, and we're seeing them on the news. And one of the
Mhm.
things that I'll do sometimes is I have to step aside, and it's similar, but maybe I put a different name to it. But it's kind of that,
Sure.
what have I encountered today? Like when I walk out my door, have I really encountered all of this negative stuff that I'm seeing online, or am I just seeing it online? And it's not to say it's not there, but it's a
Mhm.
reminder that, number one, the community that we're in, we have to really appreciate that and nurture it.
Yeah.
And also understand that that's where we can make a difference. And so if I
Mm-hmm.
am encountering that in my community, then what can I do about that in my space? And
100%.
and it's not to be in my naive little bubble of, oh, I don't have problems because they're not in my neighborhood. But I also, as one human being, am not equipped to see everything that could happen anywhere in the world in any split second that is showing up on my phone, and that's what we're seeing.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, that's a we used to, I know that it's been said often about social media is a desensitization type of thing, but
Yeah,
I really think it's more like an overstimulation more. It can
right.
be doing both, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes it's an overstimulation where I was just talking to someone today about this topic of sometimes you're engaging with someone who may be experiencing life or handles things and pressures a little bit differently than you to where they're up here all the time. Like everything is this, right? Everything is
Yeah,
high, everything is. And so when we are in work relationships or whatever it is that we need to come together and actually collaborate, work with one another, we got some choices to make, right? We can either be pulled into being up high also,
right.
or we can kind of approach it already knowing, like I know myself, so I know like I can't live up there, and I'm a compassionate person and
Mhm.
empathetic, so I typically can gravitate to what somebody is dealing with and really quickly. So I have to really be intentional to this is how I handle it. I acknowledge what
Mhm.
it is, like I acknowledge that
Sure.
there's a thing for this person. So I acknowledge this situation and then I go to a solution. Okay, so I hear what you're saying. I see what you mean by that. Man, that's tough. Okay, so my thought is, how about XYZ?
Yeah.
So there's acknowledgement of I'm not ripping that away from you, that that's
Hmm.
what you're experiencing in the moment, but I just can't come join you. And I don't even
Right.
have to
Yeah.
announce that based
Hmm.
on how I'm,
Yeah.
by having the acknowledgement and then,
Yeah.
but I just,
I love
sometimes
that.
you have to tell people like, I love you, but I can't come there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
can't.
find myself saying a lot like I can't sit in this space with you.
Yeah.
Like you said,
Yeah.
I can't join you. I can't come there. It's not to be, it's a self-defense. Like I have to protect my sensitive little self. Because I take on other people's things, and so it
Sure.
is hard.
It
But I
is.
like that how people should be acknowledged, they should be seen, and that it doesn't mean that we're not wanting to be there to support them, but it doesn't mean that we
Mhm.
can live their life as their partner or by their side
Right.
to
Because
that
it's a
degree.
lot of times people go there out of survival, out of instinct, because that's just what they've done. So I was thinking of this scenario about this very topic the other day, and it's like the cry wolf thing when the story when we were growing up about
Hmm.
don't cry wolf. It's if everything cannot be an emergency,
Right. Yeah.
if every situation, instance of everything is treated like it is emergency room visit, then people will just kind of chill back, right? Because you can only stay up for so long.
Right. Yeah.
You can only have that reaction from a legitimate way so many times because
Hmm.
then you get there and you realize, okay, yeah, that might have been an urgent care visit. Oh, that
Right.
might have been a trip to the Band-Aid.
Hmm. Or yeah,
Right.
that might have been something you could have handled on your own. And when you have a giving personality or
Yeah,
you're a caring person,
yeah,
you do want to drop things to go help people.
mm,
And we forget, well, who am I not helping that really needed that help
yeah,
if I do that? And it might have been yourself.
exactly.
So,
Even from a leadership perspective, because that's kind of what I was looking at, like different kinds of leaders,
hmm.
that how people, like if you're the leader that everything is a crash and burn, like if everything is, oh my gosh, I can't believe that that's the end of all things, we've lost everything, kind of a thing. If everything has that kind of energy behind it, then your team doesn't know how to show up um, in things because it's not realistic to believe that a team can show up in 911 24/7.
Right.
Um, even for
Mhm.
people who do that kind of thing for a living, they have downtimes where they're not, they're
Yeah.
prepared for the 911, but they're not necessarily every single day, all day in 911 mode.
Right.
The adrenaline, the peak senses, the, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
like you said, rescue mode.
Yeah.
Uh, we can't be that all the time. And so as leaders, we have to kind of choose.
Yeah, I think
Um,
we've all had that boss who has
mhm.
um been, well, we need you to step up when we need to step up. And then it's like, yeah, but then can't be Monday through Friday and then also Saturday and it's like these emergencies need to be emergencies and not
Right,
regular.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times that what'll happen is they'll manage their teams how they manage their own personal things or
Mm,
their own personal
wow.
life, right?
Right.
So, and there has to be a separation in that. Like, that's when you build your team appropriately, right? So you build your team in such a way that, yeah, you're your own person and you can do what you got to do, and even how your reactions might be with yourself, or maybe your number two might see that part of you, but you've got to trust them to then take what you've experienced or
Right.
whatever seeing and flush it down in a way that actually is beneficial for the whole company, for the team, for everybody, right?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a thing where people have to kind of, that's when you're getting into a management style. Like if you micromanage, you're not,
Hmm.
you will have a number two, but that number two is literally your puppet and just doing what your mouth of,
Yeah,
say it like
exactly.
this and do it like that.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that people don't understand that they're robbing that person the chance of their own development if you're not
Yes,
letting them make mistakes. Like as
yes,
leaders, we need to pick and choose where we can afford to let people make mistakes and let go of the
100%.
reins, and
Yeah.
where we say this one thing I have to hold really close because
Mhm.
this is super important. We can't afford mistakes.
Right.
But maybe on this big project that's super important, I can let this part go because I'm going to do some double checking before it goes out the door.
100%.
So, yeah.
And it's culture too, right? It's like
Hmm.
if you're, how are you building culture? If you, because a lot of people like to use the terms family and that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
but every family is different. Like how our family operates is different from another family's how it operates. So you have to be a bit more specific about that and what that
Right.
means to be family here. And so I did a workshop recently where we were talking about the leader needs to be able to clarify their values, right?
Hmm.
Because you're leading from them, whether you intentionally do it or not, whether you've expressed that through your
Right.
SOP or not, you are leading from your values. So you need to know what those are so that
Hmm.
you can be intentional about how you build your team, one, but then how you express those values and how you reward your team for honoring the company values
Hmm.
that just so happen to line up with your personal values, right?
Yeah.
Or admit that there are some spaces in your company that will not get to line up exactly with your personal values, depending on
Hmm.
what they are, and let that piece run that way, because it has to, just depending on the industry and what you're
Sure.
trying to accomplish. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I run into that with companies that I work with and that I've worked for where, we've all seen the example of the different departmental dynamics because each
Mhm.
department within a company has their culture. And
Yes.
one a classic example that I use all the time is that difference between like either operations and sales or sales and
Oh yeah.
accounting, where the
Mhm.
sales has got to be all warm and friendly and loosey goosey with boundaries because they're working on customer relationships. And then you've got the
Yeah.
accounting person who is like, no, these are the rules, this is black and white. And from a sales perspective, it's, can you just loosen up a little bit? It's like, well, you don't
Right,
want
right.
someone loosey goosey with the book. So we actually want to appreciate that that's their values
Yes,
and have them in that
100%.
role.
Exactly. And I love that you use that example because that's one that I've seen like over and over again. I worked in staffing for some years. Gosh, about 8 to 10 years I worked in staffing. So that was something that I needed to be able to pick up on those different nuances as far as the job is concerned. It can't be someone that's just good at numbers, but then their personality style is very like extra chatty or extra like, oh, just go with the flow, kind of
Hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
because most people, when you're dealing with your stuff, you want it to be dress right dress, and you count on those systems being followed because then you don't have to think about I wonder if this is going to turn out right because the system's been proven in most cases
Yeah.
already. Follow the system.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I
I had a
I hear
conversation
you.
like that today with somebody new coming into that kind of role, and I was just like, yeah, so what I'm gonna need you to do. And the person training them was kind of giving me the 411, hey, I've tried to, you know, express how it's important to do certain things in a certain order. You may not know why it's being done. I'd rather you ask me, can you tell me a little bit more about the process and how'd you guys come to this point
Right.
than just to make the decision on your own not to do it.
Yeah.
It's so
hmm Yeah. I remember having to tell people when I was in sales for several years and
Mhm.
having a newer customer service rep and having to explain to them just, hey, don't feel bad about like blowing up my phone if you need
Right,
something from me. Like your job is to make sure our customer has what they need. And if I didn't
mhm,
get back to you on something because I got distracted,
right.
that's your job. And I'm not going to get mad at you for that. Like it's
No,
okay.
not at
Like, hey,
all.
I'm waiting for this order to go out. I need this answer, or I need you to approve this thing. Like I'm,
Yeah.
I'm, I try to be as good as I can about getting back to you, but I'm also on the road all day and I'm ADD enough. And that's why this job is good for me because I'm like doing all the things and
So
it's
you can
fun.
go to
But every once in a while, I am not the guy sitting at the desk going, this thing needs to go out right now. I need the
right,
answer. That's your
right.
job. So if you got to be like, Andy, you are letting me down right now, then you got to let me know that I'm letting you down because it's letting the whole team and the
Whole
customer
team
know.
down, customer. Yeah. I love it.
All right. Well, in a minute, we want to hear all about all of your leadership coaching and exactly what you're doing with your business because I think we're getting a really good glimpse of everything you're bringing to the table. But before that, the world wants to know about your awkward thing. So, what would you say
Oh,
is
I
your
don't
awkward?
know.
What you've had to
Um,
own to step into to just be the amazing person you are?
I mean, you hate to use like words that are like legacy words, but I will say I do have this a quirky. My kids will call me corny or, you know, I have friends be like nerd, kind of thing. Like I would I wouldn't necessarily use that word because I feel like that's not nice to people, but I
Mhm.
don't get harmed by that using that
Sure.
word. I've stepped into that. I've owned it. I'm the joke that's like what do you call us? The dad joke person
Uh-huh. Sure.
that if you told one of those, most likely I'm laughing the hardest in the room. You know,
You're leaning into it.
I lean in. I think I follow in that because I am a lifelong learner and I'm okay with that. And there's not a whole lot that I wouldn't be willing to sit down and listen to and learn about, right? Get on
Yeah.
these rabbit trails on of, I wonder why that does this, or I wonder why this is it. So then you're just in some random conversation with family or just wherever, and somebody brings something up and then next but blah, 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 you're sitting there telling them,
Right.
I read
Yeah,
the
well,
other day.
actually,
Yes, yes, exactly that. Actually, this is me. So I would say that that's my biggest thing. I think there are probably others. I feel like sometimes that is the question that you ask the people closest to you, like, hey, what's my thing? What's my
hmm sure.
but I would say for me that that's what it is. I'm that person. My sense of humor, I feel like is very deep, even though I will laugh at the dad jokes. I kind of get other nuance
hmm
pretty easily too. Like, so I might be the first laugh and the loudest one in the back of the room before the rest of the everybody else gets it. And so that's awkward. And so, so that kind of, what I'm saying, to be because my laugh is not the gentle kind. It's the
People will know you're laughing.
whatever. Yeah.
I love that.
And I'll forget that that's a thing sometimes until someone openly says, "I just, Angie, I heard you all the way back in or I just
hmm
love when you laugh like that." And I'm like, when did I laugh? I'm trying to remember like when they could
Right.
be referencing it
hmm
because it's that natural for me. It just kind of comes up.
Right.
But beyond that, if I was to turn it into a superpower, I would say people, I was that person at school and growing up that I had all kinds of like friends from every floating out of, not because I was like this best person or whatever. I just was like one of those people that anybody could talk to, right? So
Sure.
I had friends from the jocks and friends from the, you know what I'm saying, like
Mm-hmm.
varying different walks of life that we kind of have in school, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But I didn't belong to any of them.
Mm.
Like I was not a jock. I was not, I mean, I was decent in sports, but I was not a jock.
Right.
I was decent in my academics, but I just had these different people. Like I could be hanging out with the rockers. I could be hanging out with, whatever, I did
You
band, but
broke the
also
code.
yes, you know what I'm saying? So, and that kind of thing honestly has followed me my whole life. And I'm unapologetic for it. And I don't try to, I'm not tribal in that way, I'm saying
Mhm.
on purpose
Right.
because I just enjoy people. And again, it's that whole getting to know you, getting to know about what you do in your world, where you come from, what do
Yeah.
how do you think and why do you think that way? And but not in a science way, but more just like curiosity. And
Hmm.
curiosity helps in my line of work. So
Did you have a point where you noticed that that was different than most people?
I didn't really notice it as a middle schooler or even younger, but I know now I can look back and see that it was a thing.
Hmm.
Um, when I even noticed it in high school, I still didn't notice it. Like I
Sure.
knew it, but I didn't notice it. And I'll give you an example. One of my guys' friends that I knew from geometry class, I didn't even put the two and two together. This dude was like the quarterback of the football team, right? In high
Hmm.
school in whatever grade that was, say 10th grade. I believe it was 10. And we would clown so much and kicking it in class and laughing about our thing and talking through our whatevers and, whatever, and making fun of what, da, da, da. I never looked at it like, oh my gosh, the quarterback of the team talked to
Right.
friends.
Hmm.
Never, never. He was just my friend from geometry, right?
Right.
Clueless over here. So he's dating the head cheerleader, just like on TV. So he's dating the head cheerleader, right? He tells me one day, he was like, Ange, we're going to the movies. Da, 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 da. I don't want to go by myself. Will you go? And I was like, what do you mean? I didn't even think of it being like, when I thought of it being weird in third wheelish,
Hmm.
sitting at the theater when he's laughing at parts of the movie and he's talking, and I'm like, oh wait, I shouldn't be here.
Oh, right.
This is one of those things that she's looking at me like, why are you here?
Right. Like he's the one who invited me. Like,
I
ask
didn't
him.
do it.
Right.
But
That's
but
funny.
but but at the same time, that of that whole season, at the very same time, I'm friends with the people who no one looks at,
Mm.
no one even knows that go to the school. They're passing me notes. You know how kids used to pass notes to each
Yeah.
other between classes or whatever. Then you get
Right.
the notes and you write the note back to that other person.
Yep.
So I had that kind of thing going with somebody else, we write so much, it's a notebook. So they
Hmm.
take the notebook to a class and write something and give it back. You know what I'm saying? So I had that wide gamut and I still didn't get it. I think it just didn't. I knew it existed, but it didn't sink in that it was a thing until my late teens, maybe early mid 20s, maybe. But where I owned it, definitely in my 30s. Um, and then as I've gone beyond that in my 40s and now 50s, it's like, yeah, I'm a master at it now. It's like
Right.
it's mine and I own it. And if you know me, you know this about me, right? All
Hmm.
right. So that
Yeah.
might make you be a person that comes up to me and say, let's ask Angie if she knows somebody who does this, because they kind of figure I might have this eclectic,
Sure.
normally I do,
Yeah.
eclectic group of people
Hmm.
that I do life with. So maybe she knows
Yeah.
somebody, you know.
No, I can really relate to that because I've always felt like I'm on the fringe side of a bunch of groups, but never, like you
Mhm.
said, not a tribal person. I hadn't heard it described that way, but just I
Yeah.
never want to go all in on any one particular thing. And I've always thought that like I've always seen that as a oh, commit already. But at the same time, I like meeting people from all walks of life, and I don't want to be in this cookie cutter format of just
Mhm.
nope, I'm this is my thing, that's my full identity.
Right.
Um, and and it's beautiful too to hear you talk about that transition to adulthood where now you can see the beauty in how it serves you, this thing that we don't even know is different. We don't even
Hmm.
notice in middle school. We see it a little bit in high school, but don't even
Yeah.
think about it really. And then later you're like, wait, now it's on purpose. Now it's
Yeah.
intentional.
100%. Because before it's just like it could start up by just a conversation. And then just to know that this is how my life has gone when I was so deathly afraid to talk to people. Like I would talk to people as a kid, but only if they talked to me first. Like I could go a whole day at school without talking if someone didn't talk to me first. It
Hmm.
just so happened that people didn't mind starting conversations, and then I would try to have them. But there's something to that, like from that is, one of my friends um, said something to me before that I've just kept with me, and it is usually some of your greatest strengths end up being um, having the propensity to be your greatest weakness because it's a
Yeah.
strength that's out of control,
Oh,
right?
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Your
Hmm.
strength out of control is a weakness, right?
Yeah.
And so when I think of that aspect, which it is a strength for me now, but the weakness part of it is the totally thing where you don't consider yourself. You keep yourself, you're constantly making room for others.
Hmm.
So there's this people are coming in, you just shrink back instantly without thought, not because
Yeah.
someone necessarily treated you badly, you just do it instinctively and
Hmm.
make room to catch others. And so for me, that has been an issue that I now have to kind of like work through and be intentional about like, of course I can help people. Of course I can be with you through your thing, but just like being able to be intentional about me, it feels
Right.
so weird right now because that's the
Yeah.
season of life I'm in.
It's a real challenge when you start putting up boundaries
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
for good reasons, but it's, people aren't used to that side of us and
Right.
it feels awful to say no to somebody when you're
Hmm.
used to always saying yes, and then you feel like, oh God, do I need to call them tomorrow to make sure we're okay? I said no, but I really wanted to say yes.
Yes, it's
But
so
yeah.
true. It's so true. And then and most of the time, there are some people who take advantage of those things. But
Hmm.
when you live your life like this, if it's just your natural thing to do, most of the time the people haven't asked you for that. That's something you've given,
Right. Yeah.
and you've given it in abundance.
Hmm.
So any slight adjustment to it feels like an affront to them.
Right. Yeah.
They're looking for the thing that either they must have done or, you know,
Hmm.
like what's the problem?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, because they're so used to the way that you've done things. And honestly, they've been the beneficiary of it, right? And most
Yeah.
people in our lives have been a beneficiary of our availability, um,
Hmm.
beneficiary of our intentional or unintentional shrinking.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so when you make those changes for yourself, it automatically feels like something being done to them instead
Hmm.
of just being like, "Hey, I'm here
Instead of
too."
being just about me.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm living life too.
Yeah.
Now, my life is not just put here just to make sure yours is great.
Exactly. Yeah, one thing I've started to do is I love that question of if you say yes, what are you saying no to? And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
when I've said yes to people, I've started adding the conditions of the yes.
Okay.
So, for
Yeah.
example, if someone says, "Can you do this for me?" I'll think, "Okay, really?" Like in the past, I would just say yes, and then pretty soon they're like, "Well, when are you going to get it done?" And all of a sudden, it's like, "Well, I didn't really have time for 4 or 5 days to get to it." So now I'll say, "Well, I can do that for you next Tuesday around three
100%.
o'clock."
Yes.
And more often than not, it's like, "Oh, never mind. I got it."
100%.
It
Yeah.
just and that way it's like, well, with everything that I have going on, I want to be able to help you, but here's what I can offer. Or I can
Yeah.
help you, but it's only for half an hour on this day. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, and it changes it from oh, I just don't want to help to giving them some respect for how much you actually have on your plate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that you do. And it's like there's not an assumption sometimes with our personality types that they know you have a life, they know things are going on,
Right.
but there's no moment to consider it
Hmm.
because of how we've presented our life of
Right.
availability, honestly.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of let's get to it kind of people, right? If you're just a let's go get to
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
kind of person, people will assume that if you're not, let's just go right now on the thing that they're doing, then what's wrong? What's going
Right.
on?
Yeah.
Kind of. And so part of the challenge that I've done for myself recently is when I have something or if I'm being asked something, I'm like you now, like where I'll say, hey, yes, I can do this, but it won't be until such and such a time, or yes, I can do this, but I can do it in this way.
Yeah.
I sometimes
Hmm.
it's how I'm going to do it. But also I've tried my best to be let to explain less
Yeah. That's a
intentionally
big one.
because I have a lot of words
Hmm.
and I feel compelled to use them, especially if I feel like I'm not being in a space that somebody needs me.
Right.
Then I want to have a
Yeah.
lot of explanation of why this is the case.
I
And
used to, yeah.
so I'm trying to get better about that. And just sometimes it's just the yes is yes and the no is no, or
Hmm.
sometimes it's no, sorry, I can't do it this week, but it doesn't mean you can't ask me again the next time,
Right. Yeah.
something like
I used to work with this gal and she was my work wife, my bestie. We
uh-huh.
like worked so well together. And I would watch her just nicely just shoot people down, but she would just say that doesn't work for me. And I was like, even our boss, like when she wanted a raise, she's like, well, that doesn't work for me. And I was like, I wish that like how do those words come out of your mouth? Like I need some lessons on this. Just that does not work for me. And
Yeah,
and she, she wasn't rude. She was just like, this is my standard. This is what I need. And I come back to that so many times where I was like, I just need to remember this. Does this work for me?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. And sometimes it doesn't, but I didn't grow up. I made room for my sister. I made room for, dad. I made room for mom, like meaning room for their person, room
Yeah.
for who they were. And so I was doing that before I learned to do it. I was doing that before there were a ton of words. So therefore, everything that I built along the way supported that, approach. And
Sure.
so it's like now trying to look at it differently and getting that encouragement like from people outside who know me well. I'll say like
Hmm.
with my kids or whatever, if I'm sorry, I got to do this thing first and da, da, da. They're like, Mom, just go do your thing. You don't have to explain to us. It's
Hmm.
your, like, so
Which is good. Yeah,
takes
they
like
see it.
outside people to say to you like, hey, quit apologizing for
Right.
existing.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's that over apologizing. That's a big one. That is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other element at play too is that a lot of times we like doing these things. Like these
Oh,
things can be like, oh, this is a good
100%.
fun thing. Like I want
Yes.
to do that.
Yes.
And so there's that lesson of, okay, this is good, this is fun, but is it right for me right now? Is it the right
Yes. Oh
course
my
for me to
goodness.
take? It doesn't mean I don't like doing the thing. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy the people. And
Exactly.
sometimes that's hard to do because you're like, I kind of want to go. I want to go be a part of that thing,
Yes.
but I
100%.
did commit to
Yeah.
this over here, whether it's for myself or
hmm
someone else.
And timing and wanting to clone yourself because you want to be a part of all of
Hmm.
it,
Yeah,
and just do all the things that you can do. Yeah, I missed something last week that I really wanted to be a part of, but I didn't have my calendar thing set up in a way that let me know in time to make the
oh,
call,
sure. Yeah.
make the decision, and I
Hmm.
was so frustrated. But then it was that detailed because of how many other things I had going on.
Right.
So if I didn't have all those other things going on,
Hmm.
then making the shift may not have been such a big deal or, finding out a little
Yeah,
later, but I was so disappointed. But that was like, had to talk myself out of that and say, Angie, listen, you can't be at everything all the time. It's just not going to happen. So you make your best plans, you kick yourself and say, okay, next time I'll make sure I set up my calendar to give me more choice. Cause I kind of felt like the choice was made for me in that moment,
sure.
but I did it. I'm the
Yeah.
one that put in the
Yeah.
the extra step for myself. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done that where even like checking my voicemail, if I see that I missed a call from somebody and I know who it is, it's like why sit on the oh that's there all day long and not just check right away and be like, oh, I got to call my sister back or I got to call. It's
Sure.
like the sooner I do it, the less hours of potential stress I've had about that nagging reminder.
Keeping it there. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, like I do the same thing where I'll be like, okay, this needs to be done. So I'll put it on my calendar, like make sure you submit an application for this thing. Like here's the
Mhm.
deadline. It's like
Yes.
it's like certain things take just as long as it would have taken me to put it on my calendar. So those are the things I need to do
100%.
in the moment and not create another task for myself. And then
Yeah.
randomly throughout for 2 weeks, it's like popping up. Oh, don't forget to do that thing. Don't forget. So like,
Oh
why
my
don't I just do
gosh.
the thing?
Yes, it's true. It's so true. Sometimes that is legitimately the answer. Just stop and do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us about Ataruka coaching and
Yeah.
all the things you're doing. I know you're helping a lot of leaders out there and you've got some amazing stuff coming up.
I'm excited for where we're going right now and what we're doing. I am I was introduced to coaching back in 2015-ish. So actually probably 2013. I actually launched my coaching business. I founded it, let's just say that,
Hmm.
in 2015. And I started getting my hands out there and a few things that were like more like passion projects. For instance, working with the local it's a really a national organization, but the local version of this organization that works within the school systems, helping students succeed, right?
Hmm.
And being there as a resource for them in multiple ways. And so partnered with them, came up with a coaching little program for a group of girls. They were looking to follow this group of girls through their career in high school,
Oh, wow.
starting with them in ninth grade and providing them some tools and things that they would need to, like decision making and working through some things. And it was so fun. Like we did this thing. I would go there, meet with the girls, like once a week or every other week at their advisory class. We'd get together, we'd work through some exercises. They didn't really all know each other, and there's about six, seven of them, but they didn't necessarily all know each other, but they did by the time we were done with this. But some
Sure.
of these girls were going through it. And when I tell you, carrying some stuff that even adults
Mm.
aren't dealing with, but they learned some things about how to assess what's going on in their lives, how to make decision, despite those things, how to hold conversations, how to ask good questions, of themselves and of other people. And it was really cool. So I was working on that. I did that for a couple years. And then my day job at the time kind of took precedent. And then I was also working with a nonprofit organization that helped women transition from the military into civilian life. So
Okay.
this was started by someone here locally too, who transitioned herself. She retired and she saw these gaps and she saw these things and she instantly wanted to be able to do something to fill that. And so she started this organization and it's called, what does she call them? Redefining you, basically, because it's a big deal when you're getting out of the
Oh,
military, especially
definitely.
if you
Yeah.
retired, right? Of who am I now and what am I going to do and how does this even work?
Yeah, like
Because
what skills can I even bring to this to the
exactly,
civilian
exactly.
world and where do I
Yes.
even start? And
Yes,
yeah,
and
it's
what are
huge.
you healing from? What did you deal with? What, all the things. So she brought together tons of resources and put on symposium that would last 2 days, 2 to 3 days. And at the end of that symposium, there would be like this big resource day, and it was like and so I did that with her. She would hold them 2 to 3 times a year. And I did that for maybe 2.5 years, and did, yes, I was a resource table. Sometimes I was in breakout, workshop type of thing. I think a couple times I even spoke as a part of one of the days to get up and share something or whatever. But those were my beginner days of working in that. And of course, wherever I go, coaching goes.
Sure. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Like whatever day job I had at the time, coaching was there. Before I knew what coaching was, I learned coaching. I was like, oh, there's competencies to it that make it real and that make it safe,
Right.
but essentially I was doing it before that, right? Just didn't
Hmm.
know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was something that was kind of queuing up in the back of my head is that I bet you were coaching long before you called it coaching.
Yes, yes.
Because I
And
had
so
a
that was
similar
kind of
experience.
like
Yeah.
the aha moment of when I did discover coaching. I was actually in school pursuing a bachelor's in leadership. For that school, it's called leadership ministry, but then I discovered coaching, decided they had a program there and it was ICF, based and stuff like that. So I decided to go ahead and pursue that.
Hmm.
And then by the time I graduated with my bachelor's already, still finishing that up. By the time I finished the program for the coaching and got certified and all that, then I only needed, the school had made a master's program that was in leadership with a concentration in life coaching. And I was like, I only needed like 6 classes or six something credits. And I was
Hmm.
like, I'm exhausted, but I'm going to do it. And I just pushed
Right.
my way through. So that's my, educational background is that. And then I received my PCC certification through the ICF. I have no, man, I got to do it again because I let it lapse on me.
Oh,
And so
right.
whatever, COVID, hashtag life. I mean, there were so many, I won't even get into
Sure.
that part of my life right now. It'll be in a book one day, but there's a lot that took place, but I will get back there because all that to say, I relaunched my business in 2023 is when I really started kind of getting things going. I
Hmm.
rebranded, looking at where I'm at now. What is it that I feel like we're here to provide to the community right now? And it's
Right.
all things leadership. I love the idea of leadership development.
Hmm.
How do we um, walk hand in hand with the leaders to ensure that they show up where how they need to show up and where they need to show up and to accomplish the missions that they're trying to accomplish.
Right.
What I mean by that is most leaders who are good at it have been doing it for a long time. There's a
Hmm.
lot that they choose. There's a lot of ways of doing leadership that have changed. Like it just has changed, and it has changed because the people have changed, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's not the core values of leadership. We need integrity. We need, strong character. We need hardworking people. We need good communicators. We need people who are, in most cases, big picture people can see big picture, but understand so all of that is the same. But how
Hmm.
we the modality is what's different now. You
Right.
can't
Yeah.
do things exactly the same anymore. And people will look at you like you're crazy if you're talking to them in a way that you do what I say, because I've got your paycheck. So
I got the title, right?
yeah, and people will look at you and be like, okay, great for you. You
Hmm.
know, and I
Yeah.
think coming from COVID and all the things that we've survived as a world, honestly, people are just like willing to walk away more because
Yeah.
they know that there's other things bigger on the tables. Like I'll just go get my food in a different way than
Mhm.
put up with this, pretty much.
Yeah. No, that's such a good way to look at it because the world has shifted, and while there are some things that are still
Hmm.
important and certain things won't vary,
Yeah,
we can't approach people the same way. There's different expectations.
yeah.
Wow.
And I believe, although we are going through some stuff that's a little different than that at the top level, but I do understand and believe, and you might be able to let me know if you see it the same. Leadership requires so much more collaboration now, like the
Yeah.
thought process of collaboration.
Hmm.
Like if you're the president of a company, and you've got somebody else, I'll just go as far as I can think, the parking attendant, right?
Sure.
You're not asking the parking attendant how to, you know, forecast for the next quarter,
Right.
but you need to be treating that person like what they do matters,
Hmm.
right? Because all of that stuff needs to kind of flow and have this symbiotic movement
Right.
together. Every little piece matters. So if you don't want to have that position, which could be a high turnover position by nature, turning over faster than it needs to, because that costs money,
Right.
then treat the person like a person and actually, find a way to make sure that there is a feeling of collaboration happening, even if that person's not making these high calls up here with you.
Yeah.
Take that template and apply it in every area of what you're
Hmm.
doing. And that's my main shtick is like helping having people realize that that is a thing.
Hmm.
And then for each company and each leader, it will look different. Like I might get approached by an individual leader who is just frustrated by how things are happening with their
Right.
particular team, right?
Hmm.
Or I could get approached by somebody else who says, hey, we just need to shift complete culture here and let's sit down and talk about what that looks like. Can you come in? Like some of the work that you do, you're coming in, if people are all closed in on themselves, that makes it harder for them to even just work with one another.
Right. They're not going to share any ideas if they don't even feel comfortable
Exactly.
acknowledging the ideas they have themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
So just getting that big picture approach, and I
Hmm.
and I actually some of my favorite stuff to do that I want to do more of is work with teams. Like just
Hmm.
the team is stuck. Come on,
Right.
let's get this, let's work on this. Like tell me what you guys are working on, whether it's a project or just stuck as a culture.
Hmm.
Like this is where we're at, this is where we want to be.
Right. And we can
Okay,
solve it
so
together.
yes, and then you
Yeah.
start asking questions. Okay, when this happens, what's the response? How do you how is what's the expectation here when
Mhm.
something like this happens?
Right.
That kind of a thing. And so, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's me. Now, here's the thing. That's where I get super excited. Angie gets excited about a lot of things, but that's where I'm focusing my attention. But I can and do end up doing a lot of hard work for people too. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? It's just
Sure.
like something that connects with like who you are as a
Mhm.
person, which to me is the beginning of all things. Like if you don't see
Oh,
you
yeah.
and you don't know who you are, then showing up in your workplace as a leader, it's going to feel more like play acting than it is going to feel like, something that's legitimately
Right.
flowing from you. It'll feel
Yeah.
like you're showing up for an act. And if you don't know your character, if you're showing up as an actor and
Hmm.
you don't know the depth of your character,
Right.
what
Yeah.
are you getting out of that?
Yeah,
You know
it's
what
not
I'm
going to go well.
saying? Yeah.
Right. Well, and it comes back to what you were talking about earlier with the leadership team even knowing their values. Like if you don't know
Mhm.
your own personal self, your own
Yeah.
values, you're not going to know how you're going to present and how you're going to lead. So
Hmm.
that heart work does need to be done,
Yeah.
and they do go hand in hand.
They
So,
really do. I'm actually this at the end of this month, I'm shameless plug. I'm doing a virtual workshop called Street Cred and Why It Matters. And the whole topic of that, like I know I'm aging myself, that street cred, like how are you known?
yeah.
And are you being intentional about that? Are you
Hmm.
realizing the different ways and the different avenues of how you are presenting yourself out in the community? Um, that's important. And it's so important. It's important from the big stage of things, brand and corporates and da 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 da. Da.
Right.
But as an entrepreneur, that's all we got almost, at first.
Hmm.
You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is what how you're building that. But even if you're a middle manager or somebody just leading in a certain way, or you're somebody who aspires to be a leader and you're wanting to be get the attention of somebody in your organization. How you show up matters, and there's more to it than just a popularity.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's that, are you a person of your word? Are you going to do what you say? Are you
Mhm.
considered reliable? Are you the person that
Right.
people say, oh, the guy's great when he's here, but they're always going to be late, or
Yeah.
they're great when we get their attention, but they're always going in a million different directions.
Mhm.
So we're
Or
not going to
even
count on them.
that example we talked about earlier about if everything's an emergency, say you're
Hmm.
already a leader, if everything is, oh my God, oh my God,
Right.
oh, then it comes across as you don't handle stress well and you know what I'm saying,
Hmm.
whatever.
Right.
And when really it could just be a quirk that you're dealing with. And because some of the people I know who operate that way, they come down off of it almost instantly. But everything starts there. But you know what I'm saying? Like
Right. Yeah.
so that's a thing that they could just kind of work through. And if depending on the culture they built around them,
Yep.
they may be able to build in accountability and at certain levels. I'm not saying that everybody needs to go around telling their boss what to do. That's not what I mean. But if you create a culture that is more open and
Right.
free, then if somebody has the permission to come back around and say, okay, I know this is very important to you, but if we were weighing this out between da 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 da, this is what I had on my scales for today. What priority where
Right.
would you want me to put that?
Yeah. Yeah,
In the midst
exactly.
of what else I had going
Yeah,
on.
there's ways, and that's one of the things that sounds like you work with too, where teaching the team how to work with the leader as well as the leader how to have those conversations with the team, because there
Yeah.
are skillful ways to have those conversations that aren't just, well, you already gave me too much work. Now you want this? It's
Right, right.
okay. Do you want that done before I jump into these other things, or do you want me
Exactly.
to finish this and then just add that to the list? Because
Exactly.
the boss has a million things coming at him from other directions that we don't realize, and they
Mhm.
easy for them to forget what all is on our plate. So,
Yes. So my method of all of this that I've developed is called the dynamic pause. And what that is for highly productive, leaders, people who are just going like on the go all the time, right? Um, Come and take a pause and assess. So it has three pillars to it. It's a pause to breathe. Okay, so that means because we ain't breathing most of the time when we're running like that. It's
hmm
just like you
yeah,
don't remember the last time you really did breathe, right?
right.
What happens when you're not breathing? You're killing something. Something's going down.
hmm
You might be a person who can hold your breath for a long time, but something's gonna go, right? So
Right.
pause to breathe, and then how that works out for each individual will be depending on
Right.
where they're at and what they're
And
doing,
I'm
right?
just curious before you get to the second pillar,
Yeah.
because as soon as you said that, I
Yeah.
became aware of my breath. So people listening, like, I'm curious how many of us
Yeah.
actually just went, like, just started to be aware of breathing just from you even.
100%. 100%. And that's what I hope to happen um, physically and metaphorically, like with your thing, whatever your thing is, whether it is, a shift, it results in a shift occupationally, or if it just results in how you show up differently in the space you're already at, right? So
Right.
pause to breathe and
hmm
just kind of how my thing for that is let's see what floats to the top when you
Right.
and whatever that is that floats to the top. The phase two is pause to negotiate, meaning let's negotiate with what we've just seen.
Okay.
Okay. This whole process of I sat still for a second and this is what floats to the top. What am I going to do with it? And you're
Mm.
negotiating with yourself. What am I
Wow.
doing with this? And am I looking at it real quick? Because I'll use this example. Somebody comes to your motivational uh, uh, a speaking engagement that you did.
hmm
Okay. They were all jazzed. They were like, yes, and they left it like, oh,
hmm
you know, and then they walk away and then it felt good in the moment, but they didn't do anything with you, just kind of didn't hear from them again, or
Right.
whatever. That's that negotiating piece. What are we going to do with this new information that we've learned about
hmm
ourselves? Okay.
Yeah, I love that.
um we can intentionally say, you know what, that was great for that moment and I needed that, and you put it back away, you know what I'm
hmm
saying?
Yeah.
Or you say, actually, I need to hold on to this. What am I going to do with it? And so that's what we work on during that second pillar, is that pause to negotiate, is working on what I saw and what I'm going to do with what I saw. And that's an identity piece right there. How am
Right.
I
Okay.
owning this? Like
Yeah.
own your
Yeah.
offer. How am I owning what I saw? How am I owning my choice to not doing something with it?
Mm.
It's all of it, because we just need to
Right.
understand there's a
Yeah,
there's an
because
idea.
sometimes the choice is, like you said, to put it
Mhm.
back and leave it there.
Yeah, I'm not ready for
Got
this
enough
right
out of
now.
it,
I can't do it,
but I'm
whatever
choosing
it
that.
is. Yes,
Right. Yeah.
making sure that it's an intentional choice. Third pillar is pause to innovate. So you're pausing to yep, this is what it is. Now, what am I doing with it? Innovation. So I'm going to take, and that's what I bring back that whole idea of, am I shifting totally in my
Mhm.
occupation? Am I just showing up a different way with my
Right.
team? Am I presenting myself differently to the world as an entrepreneur? And who knows what floats to the top? It's endless what
Hmm.
that could be for
Right.
whomever, because all the journeys are different, right? And so, yeah, pause to innovate. And so it's those three pillars, the dynamic pause as a whole, and that's something you can work through as a team or individually. Different ways to do it. I mean, you work with what people can do. Like if you want this to be an ongoing piece of your self-management, self-care, add it in there. We'll do a long-term thing. If you just
Hmm.
want something for your team that you just want to do a reset, we come in
Right.
and do a reset. And even for an individual, just do a reset. What does that look
Hmm.
like? That might be 3 months for you. That might, whatever.
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, I'm writing a book about that whole process and how I came to that
I
method.
love that.
And I'm almost done with first draft, and I'm excited about that. It trademarked it. It's in process right now, so I get to throw my little TM on that when I get a chance.
Hmm.
But,
That's so
but
exciting. That's it, and that is not a small thing.
no,
That is worth celebrating. Even small
yes,
things are, but really
yes,
celebrate the big things. That's awesome.
100%. I did the same thing with Ataruka because it took me so long to get to this uniqueness
Hmm.
that still represented what I believe. Because I don't know if I mentioned the Ataruka is Swahili, but it means to leap or to jump.
Oh, I love that.
And my legal name is Transformation Coaching Solutions, doing business as Ataruka.
Okay.
And so I wanted something in my DBA that it still expressed what my original thought was when I
Right.
started
Yeah.
coaching, was helping people with their transformations
Mm, I love
and
that.
what stage that might be. It's just I couldn't trademark that because it was a risk. So I had to choose something else,
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
Ataruka came to be, because I
Okay.
was like, okay, what can I do? And I'm going through all these things. I'm soul searching. It took me some time to do that. And then
Hmm.
I finally landed on that. My trademark lawyer, checked it out for me and like, yes, that's a hit. I was like, because you do it in your classifications and stuff
Right.
like
Yeah. Yeah. And then you find out, am I allowed to use it? And yeah,
right. And
yeah, we have
so
the thing we fall in love with, and then it's like, am I allowed to fall in love with
I know,
it? 'Cause-
like, wah, wah. And and then you find
Yeah.
out that just because you did it at your state level doesn't mean anything necessarily from,
Right.
doesn't
From
make it
yeah.
yours. And so I'm excited that I'm in the process like with that for the dynamic pause too. So I just found out that last week. So I was like, yes,
I love that.
so it
Congratulations.
takes like a year almost for the final before it
Yeah.
turns the circle R. But
Hmm.
just being able to add that TM is good for
Oh
me.
yeah, that's amazing. So I'm going to ask you another question in a minute to wrap up, but before that, we've got all the links down below for all your stuff, so people can click on them if you're driving.
Okay,
You don't got to pull over or swerve or be
sure.
dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you're ready, just click on stuff. But where are the best places to find you and connect?
I'm literally everywhere. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on TikTok, I'm on LinkedIn. You guys bear with me on LinkedIn. I still have a married name on there that's changing, but it's still me. You'll find me as
Right.
Hall, but you'll see me as Jones everywhere else. And that's just, I'm Coach Angie. That's what you know. Next up, I do have a website too. We'll get you that. I'm not in love with it, but it's coming along.
Right.
And but you can find me there, and I would love to talk to anybody. I have, free consultation is or just free question time. Like if you just want to ask me a couple things, I'm not charging you for that. Just to get to know me a little better and know what I might have to offer, or if I am a good offer for you. The other thing that's coming up soon, and I hope to be able to have you on my show when coming up, but I am in
Woo.
the works of starting a podcast as well. I will share more about that with you later once I have it all nailed down. As I'm finalizing the name this week. So, but
Awesome.
yeah, so I'm excited about that, and yeah, that's what's going on.
Perfect. Well, this is amazing. So before we go, what would be a challenge or advice you'd leave people with on how they could be a dynamic leader, own their awkward, step into themselves, whatever direction you want to take it?
I think it's just that whole idea of the first pause. I think that pause to breathe. You
Hmm.
don't know often how many challenges you have or how deep your challenges are until you sit still for a minute. So
Hmm.
that's my encouragement is like to not be afraid to let that hamster wheel stop because we all run it and something else is just in front of it keeping you going. It's not always the same thing, right?
Right.
And we tell ourselves it's a little circular thing that we do. We tell ourselves once that's done, then I'm gonna, and then once that's done, then I'm gonna.
Right.
But
There's always
we're
something.
yeah, but we're so uncomfortable in the stillness. And so just not to be afraid of what could be.
Yeah. Well, and I
Yeah.
love that. Just getting you walked us through all three pillars, but
Mhm.
just that first pause
Mhm.
is the start, and that leads to everything. That's beautiful.
Everything else, it makes everything else possible. And so that's why I was like, take your time. My pause, my encouragement to everyone else is to do your pause intentionally.
Mm.
Instead of my experience was perfect storm, gut blows. I'm laid in the corner somewhere because life just wow, about took me
Right.
out, right?
Yeah.
And so I was down and I said, I'm not getting up the same. I couldn't think straight but at that point. I could, whatever, but I just knew when I stand up, it's gonna be different. That's all I
Wow. I love that. That is powerful. Well, I can't think of anything better to end on than that right there. Thank you so much, Angie. It has been such a pleasure to know you and
Same.
get to hear more of your story. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Everybody else out there, be sure you go follow Angie, watch for her book. Don't worry about watching too closely because we'll have her back on when it's ready to come out so we can
Awesome.
make sure y'all know about it
Yes.
and follow all of her stuff, connect with her, call her for some questions, and of
Yeah.
course, as always, own your awkward.
And you're awkward.
Thank you so much for listening in for today's show. Be sure to visit awkwardcareer.com to continue your journey. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so they can find their awkward side and learn how to own it.